I was reading a Bible devotional today and came across something that just kind of struck me funny. It said that Samson was a faithful follower of God. Now, if you've ever read the story of Samson, which is covered in 4 chapters in the book of Judges, I don't think we can call Samson a faithful follower of God. He was, from before he was born, deemed to be a Nazarite by God for the entirety of his life, from birth till death. And Nazarites had to conduct themselves especially holy before God. They weren't even allowed to touch grapes or be in vineyards, things that we both see Samson doing. They weren't supposed to touch dead things, something else we saw Samson doing when he's looking at the carcass of a lion with some honey inside. He had a lot of sexual issues, also talked about in these chapters in Judges, and he had a little bit of a temper. But what I can say about Samson, as I look through this, is that he had faith. So even though Samson liked to put himself first, and even when he called on God, it was always about him and his glory and his revenge, we look at how he puts God in his life. Now, when we look at faith, a lot of people mistake faith with belief. Faith is not the same thing as belief. Faith is directed toward God, and it is certainty or assurance of something. So Samson does have faith. We see that. He has absolute certainty that God is going to come through. The first time we see this is when Samson had just killed a large number of Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey, and then he's dying of thirst. And he tells God basically, you didn't bring me here and let me have this victory in order to die of thirst. So basically, give me water, God. And you know what? God did. Samson had absolute faith that God was going to answer his need. And then later on, at the moment of his death, where Samson is blind, he had lost his strength because he gave up his secrets. But he had faith that God was going to allow him to do one final thing that would wreak havoc on the Philistines. And so he cried out to God, trusting that God would provide that, and God did. Samson's behavior is not faithful behavior, but he has that absolute certainty in God, the assurance that God will act for God's sake and God's honor. May we all have that faith. May we also be faithful. Something to think about today.